Hey Vinyl community, it's David Michael. This is just a really quick video, well, I'll try to make it quick. It's a contest response video for Andy's Vinyl Den. Andy is celebrating his 200th sub, so Andy, congrats. And this is maybe only the second or third one I've done, a contest response, and I don't do a contest response unless I think highly of that person. And I've name checked Andy at Andy's Vinyl Den several times in my videos. So if you have a chance, go to Andy's Vinyl Den, have a look at some of his videos, sub, and you can enter this contest as well. Andy's giving away a gift certificate for Amazon. So like I said, Andy, you know that I've talked about you in my videos before. I hope you get something out of my videos as I do with your videos. So once again, I want to say a big congrats to Andy, and there you go. So I do want to say though a couple things about what I'm going to show you. Andy's contest is, like I said, it's for a gift certificate, if I can get that out. Once again, I'm going to try to do this in one take today. Andy's prize is a gift certificate for Amazon, or he'll just send you the equivalent in dollars to your account to buy something, buy a record if you're choosing. So a couple things about my video I'm going to show you is that I'm bound by what I have out. A lot of my vinyl's packed, not all of it, but I'm bound by what's not packed, which is kind of this wall over here, which is fine because God knows there's enough albums that I would consider perfect over here on this side of the wall. But like I said, there's no metal, there's no psych or prog or stuff like that. That's all packed right now. And also, I should let you know what Andy's contest is. He wants you to show him 10 of your perfect albums, and then maybe just kind of explain why you think it is. So just in the interest of time, because I have a little bit of time before I go to work tonight, I quickly pulled 10 albums that I would definitely think are perfect albums to me. I try to stay away from kind of the same old things, like Sgt. Pepper's and Dark Side of the Moon and things like that, which we all kind of know are perfect albums. But what I tried to do was pick 10 things, and I think some of you might agree with me for some of them. I tried to pick 10 albums that I think are perfect that you might not be aware of. Or maybe you do and you might want to re-listen to them. Maybe you might investigate one of these albums. Who knows? So I'm going to get right to it. So like I said, I'm bound by what's not packed at the moment. And once again, like I said, I tried to think a little bit outside the box. So my first pick for Andy is Big Star, #1 record. Now, a lot of people in the know kind of know this album and how great it is. Big Star is a band. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and say I've been into this band for 30 years. I haven't. I've been aware of Big Star because I've had to order their records for my stores. It's not something that was ever really on my radar. Maybe 10 years ago, for all the times we've had this in one of my record stores, it wasn't maybe about 10 years ago that one of my employees cracked it open and played it in the store, and it was one of those albums there. My office was in the basement at the time of this store, and we had speakers that went downstairs to my office, and it's one of those times I stopped what I was doing and ran upstairs and I asked, who is this? And it was Big Star, #1 record. So I don't know what more I can say about this album that hasn't been said, but to me it's one of those, and the history of this album has been often told, so I'm not going to bore you with the details. It's maybe the best record ever made that never ever got its just rewards due to bad distribution. The times, the label just didn't know how to handle the record. God knows they tried, but they just kind of fumbled it. And the second album too as well, they kind of fumbled. So my #1 pick, this is no order by the way, Andy, is Big Star, #1 record. #2, one of my favorite bands, and it was tough picking between this album and their first album, but I had to go with this one. This is their third album, if I can count. Crowded House, Woodface. This is the album where we all know Neil Finn is the singer, main songwriter of Crowded House. But this is the album where his brother Tim Finn joined the band, and this was the first time they had been together since Split Enz. And then Tim left before their last album, and then Neil kind of took over the band for an album. But Tim Finn, there he is there, he joined the band for this album, and every song is absolute. It's just, I don't even know what to say about it. It's one of the most pleasurable listening experiences I've ever had on an album in my life. I'm not a lyric person. I'm more of how a song sounds. That's what kind of hits me, or maybe my heart's here actually. But if an album is orally pleasurable to my ears, I don't listen to the lyrics as long as they kind of as long as they sound good put together. But Neil Finn kind of is one of the few exceptions where I actually listen to his lyrics, and I had the pleasure of meeting Neil Finn last time he was in my town with Crowded House, and had a nice conversation with him. Really nice guy. But this album, yeah, I mean, if you have not heard this album all the way through, I please encourage you to listen to this album. It's one of the most glorious, well-written albums I've ever heard in my life, and it brings me, it kind of takes you to the highs, and then it kind of brings you right down to the bottom of melancholy. It's just, it's all over, it's everywhere in there. So, Crowded House, Woodface. All right, number 3, an album. I'm trying to figure if this was like my last year of high school, or if there was, I think this was the year after I graduated high school, but I remember this cassette at the time didn't leave my car or my Walkman for months. It was always in rotation. This is Concrete Blonde, Bloodletting. And oddly enough, the big single off here, Joey, to me that's like one of the lesser songs on the album. It's like all these albums, I have no want to skip any of the tracks. Every track is as good as the next. With like I said, with the hit single Joey, kind of really, to me that's one of the lesser songs. I still love it, but there's so many better songs on this album. The title track, Bloodletting, alone, which I still play DJing, and it packs the floor always. The Sky's a Poisonous Garden, Caroline, which I think was the second single, and I think that song is infinitely better than Joey. I'm trying to think of what I would pick as the best songs on here. Days and Days, and Darkening of the Light. Days and Days and Darkening of the Light, I think, are probably my top 2 songs on here, with the title track, Bloodletting. Like I said, this was their 3rd album, and it seems to be a trend with bands that I'm showing you, or just in general. A band's 3rd album seems to me sometimes to be their best album. They've had a couple albums to get under their belt. I could go through band after band whose 3rd album, to me, is by far their best album. I think by the 3rd album here, they really kind of learned their craft, and they knew what worked for them. And to me, this is one of those perfect albums. Concrete Blonde, Bloodletting, an original pressing. And apparently it's quite rare to find. And you have to excuse me. As we're doing this in one take, I need to rehydrate. Oh, also, I forgot to say at the top of the video, stayed at the end, and I want to kind of have a little caveat to if my name was pulled to win. I want to talk about that really quickly. This is an album you probably have never heard of unless you're Canadian, or unless you're really into power pop. To me, this is one of the best Canadian albums of all time, and it was an album that I could put in my top 10 soundtracks to high school. Is The Pursuit of Happiness, Love Junk. This album was produced by Todd Rundgren from 1988, so this would have been my last year of high school. And the big song off this one was I'm an Adult Now, which I believe was re-released, I think, 4 times in total. And that was the song that kind of broke through to college radio in America. But there's not a bad song on here, and actually Mo Berg here, he is from my city, and he was in several kind of punk bands in my city before he performed Pursuit of Happiness in Toronto. Like I said, this was produced by Todd Rundgren, who went on to produce their 2nd album, which wasn't so good. But their third album, The Downward Road, which was produced by Ed Stasium, but Todd Rundgren did some guitar solos on it. This one and The Downward Road are, to me, perfect albums, but The Downward Road wasn't released on vinyl. And all my CDs are packed, so I couldn't show you the CD for that. But I'd have to go with this one. There's not a bad song on here. The second single, Killed by Love, an amazing song. Consciousness Raising as a Social Tool. It's power pop, but it rocks a bit harder than power pop. But that's Todd Rundgren's kind of influence on it. So I highly recommend, if you don't know this album, or if you only know the song I'm an Adult Now, stream this album, have a listen to it. It's one of the, like I said, it's one of the best Canadian albums of its kind, I think, ever, in my opinion. So what's that, number 4? Pursuit of Happiness, Love Junk, from 1988, produced by Todd Rundgren. All right, this kind of fits in the mold with the Pursuit of Happiness slightly. This was an album, definitely of my high school days, that nobody in high school liked. Or it's not that they didn't like it, nobody knew about it. I had seen the video for Blood and Roses on our video channel, and I was instantly, it's one of those albums that I heard the song, I went to the store and got the tape right away, and I blew through that tape. And then eventually I got the vinyl later that year. But I'm going to talk about the Smithereens, Especially for You. I think they had one EP before this, but this is their first proper album, produced by Don Dixon from '86. This was my first year of high school. I can't tell you how many times I've listened to this album. It's one of the best kind of hybrid college alternative albums mixed with Beatles and Who influence and 60s beat music and in garage. Behind the Wall of Sleep, Groovy Tuesday has that total 60s vibe to it. Cigarette. I'm trying to think of In a Lonely Place with Suzanne Vega on vocals. Strangers When We Met. This is one of those albums that it's kind of ingrained in my DNA. And a lot of people, when they talk about Smithereens, they talk about their third album, 11. See, third album again. And that could have been here as well. That was their kind of big album, also produced by Ed Stasium, oddly enough, who produced Pursuit of Happiness. This album, I had to pick this album. I had to pick this album because this was my first introduction. And it was so influential in my listening in high school. It was one of those albums that kind of, with REM, it kind of drew me into that U.S. college alternative scene, which was really kind of just added to my palette of what I was listening to at the time. So Smithereens, Especially for You, is my next pick. This one's going to totally throw you for a loop. And if you know the album, you might snicker, but if you listen to it, it's one of those perfect kind of pop guitar albums, is Transvision Vamp, Velveteen. Now, most people know the band because of this girl, who got a lot of attention at the time for being a pin-up girl. But the album is actually, it's every song could have been a single, and I think most of the songs were released as singles in the UK actually. And how I know this album was my sister bought it, and I knew if my sister bought it, I didn't want to know about it. But one day I was bored and I stole the cassette out of her room, and I just fell in love with it. It's easy to kind of push it to one side as being superficial kind of UK music, but it's one of the hookiest kind of guitar, harder rocking guitar pop albums that I've heard come out of the UK from this era. And it's one of those albums you kind of have you listen to and you're either going to fall in love with, or you're just going to, it's crap. But I'm going to tell you right now, Transvision Vamp, Velveteen, to me is one of those perfect albums where there's not a song that I want to skip, ever. I told you it's going to be different. We're going to go with more Canadian content here. So if you're Canadian, Tragically Hip, Fully Completely. As a lot of you know, the lead singer Gord Downey announced about a year and a half ago that he has inoperable brain cancer and he's dying. So they did a final tour last year that I saw, and it was very emotional. Canadian, the Tragically Hip are probably, if you think about it, probably the most popular Canadian band of all time. To a lot of people, they are Canadian. And the funny thing about Tragically Hip is I love the Tragically Hip, but I don't like their fans. you go to one of their concerts and there's a lot of cool people, but there's a lot of those people that just stay away from me. So I'm sorry if that sounded a bit weird, but that's kind of one of those bands where I love the band and they're fans sometimes. But this is their third album. Look at that. I didn't plan this either. This is their third album. Oh, it's their fourth album. I lied. Well, they had an EP. Their first album was kind of an EP. And then they had Road Apples and then Up to Here. So if you count their first EP as an album, then this is their fourth, but really, let's call it their third just to kind of keep with my theme here. Almost every song on here, I'm looking on this album, and there's a song, track 7, We'll Go Too. That's maybe the only song that doesn't get rotation on Canadian radio to this day. Every single song on here, at any given time, you can turn to a rock station in Canada and you'll hear any one of these songs on the radio. If you're from Canada, you'll know. It's, like I said, the Tragically Hip to a lot of people is Canada. Even though Gord Downey has come out and said in his one of the last interviews he did, he's still alive, but he did an interview in Canada talking about his brain cancer, where he writes about Canada, but a lot of people misinterpret it. He writes about Canada in a very kind of almost a negative way, about what we could be doing better, and kind of pointing out the inconsistencies in our society. He kind of rebels against about all the wrongs for the native people up north and kind of the downtrodden Canadians. So he's one of those guys too. You have to listen to his lyrics. And I will say this: whether you like or love or you hate Tragically Hip, when they were on, they were the best live band you will ever see. I mean, you can take Kiss in full bombast, with all the bombs, all the explosions, the full makeup, and the Tragically Hip just with like 5 guys and just some amps, and they will give Kiss a run for their money any day of the week for an amazing live show. So the Tragically Hip, every single song almost is in medium to heavy rotation on classic rock or rock channels in Canada. To me, it's a perfect album. I'm almost done here. I got 2 more left. Devo. Question: Are we not men? The answer: we are Devo. This is the UK picture disc. I have the marbled original pressing too, but that's kind of stuck away somewhere. I thought this was a bit more interesting to look at. This is the original UK picture disc. There you go. I'll see if I can show it to you a bit better. There we go. Asking the question, are we not men? And the answer is, we are Devo. One of those albums that, I'm trying to think of the time frame that I discovered Devo. It would have been high school. One of those bands that, everyone starts with Whip It, and like a lot of people who stopped listening after Whip It, I went further into their stuff, and then I got their first album, and it was one of the more bizarre albums I've ever heard. If you put it into context of my age and what I've listened to at the time, that was probably one of the weirder albums I've ever heard in my life, and I needed to know more, and I did. And Devo, this album I put on, and I just, like I said, like all these albums, I have no need to fast forward, to skip the needle over, to anything. It's one of the most clever albums, one of the weirdest albums for its time I've ever heard, and it's endured. It's as quirky today as it was back then. So with that, I will say Devo definitely one of the more influential albums with me, and one of the more perfect albums I've ever heard. Okay, we're going to the last. Oh, there's two more. I'm gonna save the one you might laugh at the most for last. I'm gonna go with X Los Angeles. This is an original Sire Records or Slash Records pressing. When I was very young, I heard the song Johnny Hit and Run Pauline, and I think they played a video clip for it on our video channel. Our video channel in Canada was very progressive, much music. Eventually they ended up trying to mimic MTV, adopting all their reality show shit. But they were way more progressive than MTV was. Bands like X you would see in regular video rotation. Like they were way ahead of it. And X, they used to give a lot of video play to X. And I remember being this young punk rock kid going to the local record shop that would take me 2 buses, a train, and another bus to get to every Saturday morning with my money I collected from taking bottles in. And I would get 1 album. And I would scrutinize and I would just debate for at least an hour and a half about what was I going to get that week. Because there might not be an album next week. It all depends. Am I going to get more bottle money? Can I blag some money off my parents? But X, this very copy was the one I bought this came out in 80, so I think I bought this in 87. So I was 16. Only having heard Johnny Hit and Run Pauline, which was one of the most powerful songs I've ever heard. If you listen to, like I said, I'm not a lyric person, but sometimes there's songwriters that catch my ear, and John Doe is one of them. You have to listen to Johnny Hit and Run Pauline. I've heard John Doe say that they hate doing that song live because a lot of people throw their fists in the air and say, yeah, Johnny Hit and Run Pauline, like it's a good thing. It's a song about abuse. Johnny hit Pauline and ran. It's a very serious topic. It's unfortunate they don't do that song live a lot anymore. It's one of those albums that I had no choice but to listen over and over and over again because I didn't have a lot of records at the time, and it's endured. It's like, to me, it's one of those perfect albums. And I'm running a bit long, so I'm going to hurry this up here. X, Los Angeles. Last one. You cannot deny this is a perfect album. And you have to put it in context of the time and the genre that it's being made in. Huey Lewis Sports. Every song could have been a single, and most songs were a single. I think they went 5 or 6 singles into this album. And I defy you, if you just expand your mind and try to deny this is not one of the more perfect albums of the 80s of its kind. So I still listen to this album, and there's not a song I want to skip. And it's one of the best, like I said, albums of its kind, of its 80s rock stuff, of that kind of working man, kind of pseudo, I don't know, I want to say blues, but you know, Huey was definitely influenced by Paul Butterfield and a lot of people like that. His harmonica playing was quite prevalent. Like I said, if we're all being honest, it is a perfect album for its kind. There you go. So with that, I want to say, Andy, if you do pick my name, I want you to pass along my my prize. And I was going to think of someone to give it to, and I'm drawing blank. But if I do win, contact me, and I will slide you the name of the person I would like to pass this along to. I'm a very lucky person, as you can tell by my videos. And I like to pass along the good karma. So if I do win, Andy, I'd like to pass along that gift to someone, and I will let you know. If I do win, I'll let you know who I'd like to pass it along to. So there you go. Karma. I'm a strong believer in karma, so that's what I'm doing. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Andy, you rock. I'll put a link down below for Andy's channel. Please sub. Andy's awesome. Take care, everyone. David Michael for the Vinyl Community. Bye-bye.